Indiana basketball plays its first exhibition game this weekend at Tennessee. It very well could get exposed.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here and making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, on today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers, going to look around the Big Ten games this weekend in college football, how they impact Indiana. There's a big one that we should all be watching come Saturday night. Plus, we're going to talk about, will Indiana basketball be tested this season because of a weaker non-conference schedule? But the good news is we play at Tennessee this Sunday for an exhibition game as Indiana basketball, and I think we very, very well, very easily could get exposed. We play at Tennessee this weekend. Exhibition game, first one of the year. We play two of them, charity exhibitions. And first of all, these are really, really cool events, right? You go and you get to play different teams. Sometimes it's a big name like in Tennessee. Other times it's a, smaller team, Marriott, for example, right? But typically you have these where, and it's actually a requirement to where if you want to do these preseason exhibitions, they have to go towards a charity somehow, some way, right? Proceeds go to a charity of the team's choice. A lot of times the hosting team gets to choose. A lot of details there, but that's how these things work. And so bigger than basketball, you've got charities being taken care of because people are going to show up for this thing. And being in Knoxville, Tennessee, there at Thompson Bowling Arena, people are going to show up and watch their Tennessee Volunteers, but B, they want to watch Indiana roll into town as well. And, this could be a lot of fun. And regardless of what happens, right, good news is the result of the exhibition doesn't matter. Doesn't go against you, doesn't hurt you, doesn't help you, whatever. But we all want to see us play good. And this game is at 3 o'clock Eastern time on Sunday afternoon. It's going to be streamed on the SEC Network Plus. So you're going to have an ESPN subscription for that. Most people do nowadays, but just keep that in mind. You're going to have to pay for it if you want to watch it. But we'll talk about it on Locked On Hoosiers come Monday. But I just have a fear that we could get exposed very early in this game because yeah, we watched us play at Hoosier Hysteria, and it was fine. We saw what we expected to see, our own team playing against each other, and, got some good shooters out there. Ballo is as advertised, and I think McKenzie and Baco is going to be much better. I keep talking about the sophomore jump that he's going to make, but it's not so much worry about what Indiana could do against Tennessee. It's what Tennessee is going to do against Indiana. And look, if there's one of the coaches that I just really, really respect in college basketball, Rick Barnes is one of them. He is a really, really good coach, and he's been good for a long time. Clemson, Texas, Tennessee, this guy has been everywhere, whether it's an assistant, head coach, doesn't matter. This guy just flat out wins ball games. And we're talking about the team that won the SEC regular season championship a year ago, a coach that's got 2 Sweet 16s and an Elite 8 under his belt. Rick Barnes can coach. Can he win championships? I don't know. I guess the jury's still out on that. But he's got a lot of hardware that Mike Woodson doesn't have. And I think he's one of the best coaches in college basketball is Rick Barnes. I really, really do. And man, you start comparing the roster of Tennessee from last year to the Tennessee of this year, there's a lot of big names that are not on that thing anymore. A lot of big names that are now playing in the NBA, playing at the next level. Some guys transfer, but a lot of their big names are no longer there, right? I'm looking at guys like Dalton Connect, who had a huge preseason game the other night. You see that? Jonas Adu, Josiah Jordan James, Santiago Vescovi, those types of guys are not there anymore. But the players that are still there, Zakai Ziegler, who's coming off the injury, He's there. You have Jordan Gainey. He's there, who is a transfer in, but he is a really, really good guard. Don't overlook the senior, 6'4", 190. You also have a couple of the guys down low as well. Igor Milicic, don't overlook him. Chaz Lanier, he's a fifth-year senior guard. Cade Phillips, that's the guy I was looking for, and Jemai Mashak. He's another guard that I think could really give Indiana trouble. They're all big, they're all physical, they're all fast, and they're all so well coached. Do I think Indiana's more talented than, or let me say it this way. Do I think Tennessee's more talented than Indiana right now? No, I don't. I think Indiana's still one of the most talented teams in all of college basketball. But this will be a perfect opportunity for this new system that we try to use or plan on using that Mike Woodson's been telling everybody about. Perfect opportunity to put it in place. What do you have to lose? Run and gun. Go at it. Let it loose. Let it fly this Sunday, Indiana. You have nothing to lose at an exhibition game, and you get to put that out there against what's going to be a really good team by the end of the season in Tennessee. How good will they be in October 27th? I don't know. How good is Indiana going to be? We don't know. We're going to get our first real sight of what these two teams can be. But I'm not worried about the talent on the floor. I'm not worried about if Indiana can beat Tennessee in a street fight or a pickup game. I'm worried about the coaching on the sidelines. I'm worried about the guy wearing the suit. I'm worried about Mike Woodson. Can he prove to us that he can get it done? Can he outcoach somebody in a basketball game? Because that just doesn't seem to happen very often. And believe me, Rick Barnes can outcoach people. He has done it his entire career. Mike Woodson has something to prove this weekend. Because if you don't show up and play a good game, and look, you're going to try different things out, okay? This isn't just grind to the end and try to win this thing, and man, it's do or die in this. You are using this as a way to try different things out and see different lineups and try different systems and different plays and different situations. Like, that's what's good about an exhibition. But you are going up against a premier program in college basketball. You have to play well. You have to show that you can play well, because it is going to be on TV. People are going to watch it. You are going to watch it. I am going to watch it. And that's what I'm looking for. And I'm just afraid we may get exposed very early this season against Tennessee in an exhibition game. And my biggest concern is I just don't know how tested we're going to be throughout the regular season, especially in the non-conference slate. I want to talk about that and how Indiana can possibly use the toughest game they'll have all non-conference play against Tennessee this weekend to their advantage. We'll have that for you coming up next on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get the hunch in the middle of the game like I do, you can check out the latest stats, view play-by-play, and so much more, all from one spot, FanDuel.com. Thursday night football coming up tonight. You've got the 5-1 Vikings and the 2-4 Rams. Vikings favored by a field goal, favored by 3. Do you think they can bounce back after the loss to Detroit? Can LA get it done? They need some wins desperately, man. What's your pick? Where are you going? I'm going to take the Vikings. I think the Vikings are just a much better team here. I think they're still one of the best teams in the NFL, even though they fell a week ago. Give me Minnesota -3 versus the Rams in Thursday night football. If you are a new customer, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com right now. FanDuel.com right now, to America's #1 sportsbook. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day, and truly making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. Quickly, if you're on the YouTube side of things, be sure that you like the video. Comment down below. Are you going to watch Indiana and Tennessee this weekend in the exhibition? Are you excited about it? Maybe some predictions that you have on that game. Also, be sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just to the right, of the Locked On Hoosiers logo. Hit that for me. Helps us out tremendously. And shout out to all my audio listeners too. You guys have really shown up and supported as well, and really do appreciate you making it your first listen every single day. Be sure you follow us on there, whatever platform you're on. Be sure you subscribe if that's an option, and you have your notifications turned on so you never miss a new episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Well, I know we're going to be tested against Tennessee, but is Indiana going to be tested throughout the non-conference schedule? And are they going to be tested in Big Ten play? I think it's a legitimate question. I really, really do, because you start looking at this non-conference slate, right? You've got Tennessee and Marion in your exhibition games. I'm not really talking about those. SIU Edwardsville, Eastern Illinois, South Carolina, a game I think could end up being really, really important for Indiana, depending on how South Carolina finishes out their season. UNC Greensboro, battle for Atlantis, coming back to that in a second. Sam Houston, Miami of Ohio, you have UT Chattanooga, and you have Winthrop. Outside the battle for Atlantis and maybe South Carolina, that's a weak non-conference schedule. I'm sorry, it's weak. And I just don't like it because you don't learn anything beating SIU Edwardsville. You don't learn anything beating Miami of Ohio. And I just have a feeling that this team needs games to get better. They're going to be very, very good. But it's a lot to ask of them to be good right out of the chute, right out of the gate. There's a lot of new guys in there. There's a lot of moving pieces here. And so I love having games against the Tennessees of the world because they will expose you. They will show you exactly where you're good and exactly where you're not. And I want more of those games. I want this team to be great. I don't want a nice record and then struggle in Big Ten play, or have a nice record and fall flat on our face in the NCAA tournament. I would rather have more losses early and know that we were tested and got better because of it, rather than what's going to happen this year where, heck, we may be undefeated going into Big Ten play. It's very well possible. You do have the battle for Atlantis, which I've talked about several times here on Locked On Hoosiers. I'm excited for that. I'm glad that that's in there. That makes me feel a lot better here. If that wasn't a thing, I'd be raising all sorts of you-know-what, because it's just such a weak slate outside of that. And again, I get concerned because I want this team to be good. And you're going to see some really good teams in the Big Ten. You've got a couple of those games squeezed into your non-conference slate, right? Minnesota and at Nebraska. But folks, I'm telling you, Rutgers is going to be good. USC is going to be good. Iowa's going to be good. Illinois, Ohio State, Maryland, Purdue, Wisconsin, Michigan, Michigan State, UCLA. Like, you've got a lot of good teams on that Big Ten schedule, and you'll be tested there, and they'll expose you easily. And again, the concern for all of those games is on the sidelines. It's the coaching aspect of it. Indiana will be more talented than every team they play this year. Every team they play will be more talented than who they face. And you could not say that a year ago. You have not been able to say that in quite some time. Now, we're going to learn a lot about some of these teams, and that may not end up being true. But I think right now, just on paper, I've looked through all the rosters. I've studied them. I think Indiana's the best team in the Big Ten. I really, really do. But man, you got to find a way to beat these teams with the talent you have on the floor and the coaches you have on the sideline, which is why I like this game against Tennessee coming up this weekend, because you're going to get a real opportunity to put Mike Woodson in the fire and say, all right, let's see what you got. How can you coach us through this? What are you going to learn about your team and the rotations and things like that? And so, again, with the exhibition, you're not worried about the win. You're worried about getting better and learning a few things. But, man, once you get into the season, especially in that battle for Atlantis, where you start with Louisville, what a great opportunity. Yeah, I know Louisville's been down. I know Louisville's actually been pretty terrible recently. But you're going to see some big-name teams in this battle for Atlantis. The matchups are still TBD, but we know the teams that are there. You're going to see some teams that, let's be honest, have better coaches than you, have a better head coach, a more proven head coach, a more successful head coach than you. And I understand that a lot of Indiana fans, especially right now as we sit here at the end of October, the confidence in Mike Woodson seems to be at an all-time low for multiple reasons. Lack of success on the floor last year, missing the NCAA tournament, high school recruiting, right? The things he says just seems to be most of the fans are checked out, done, saying sayonara, see you later. We're done. We don't want him here anymore. Seems like a lot of fans are in that boat. And so, man, if you're Woody, you've got to be thinking to yourself right now, this is an opportunity for me. I have to win the fan base back. And I'm not saying that beating Tennessee in an exhibition is the way to do that, or going undefeated in non-conference play is the way to do that. I think just showing a difference, showing that he can, showing that you have the ability to still be a successful basketball coach in this day and age. Because I hear the screams, I hear the complaints from fans about Woody can't do it anymore. He's too old. He's too old school. He hasn't adapted. He can't do it in this era of basketball. And I would be lying if I said I didn't think the same. I'm starting to get there, which is why I'm putting so much pressure on this season. It's why I'm putting so much pressure on Mike Woodson, just like you are, just like the fans. They want to, we are in full see it to believe it mode. And Mike Woodson can sell it all he wants, but you've got to have the results on and off the floor. High school recruiting, transfer portal, and wins in the season. You have to have those things. And guess what? We're not getting all of those. You bring in a great portal class, but if you miss the tournament or get knocked out in the first round, then who cares? Who cares? And the portal class was great, but what happens when they leave or graduate or you don't replace them next season in the portal because you've got one stinking high school recruit sitting in your class right now? That's not okay. That's not good enough. So yeah, I put a ton of pressure on an exhibition game against Tennessee. I put a ton of pressure on a weak non-conference schedule for Indiana. And I put a ton of pressure on Mike Woodson in Big Ten play. It's do or die. It's now or never. Because if you have a bad season, the fan base is done. And I'm talking straight to Mike Woodson right now. The fan base will be done. I see them. I hear them. They will give up on you. Most of them already have. Let's just be real. Most of them have given up, have moved on, ready for you to be gone. But for those of us that want Indiana to be successful, we want him to be successful too, which is why I stress this Indiana team has to be tested this season. Anyway, and not just the guys on the floor. I'm talking the head coach who stands on the sideline. Coming up on our final segment on Locked On Hoosiers, want to take a look around the Big Ten games this weekend in college football and how they impact the Indiana football season down the backstretch. There's one game I'm telling you we've got to keep our eye on Saturday night. We'll talk about that coming up next on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least or two players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. I use Prize Picks, I'm not joking, every single day. I use it for these Monday and Tuesday night college football games. NBA season's back now. I have one currently waiting to cash in if I get a few rebounds tonight, just saying. Also, NHL is back. You have postseason baseball. Really been on it with that as well. World Series coming up. So there's no better place to be than Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So coming up this weekend, right, there's all sorts of things going on, especially in football. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones won't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's download the app today, Prize Picks, all right? Go to and then type in Locked On College for the code, and they're going to give you $50 instantly when you place your first $5 lineup. It is Prize Picks, okay? Again, my favorite go-to app. You need to get in on it as well. Prize Picks, run your game. Final segment on Locked On Hoosiers. Again, thank you so much for all you being here, audio listeners and YouTube watchers. In case you missed it, I got some extra content out for you. Locked On UConn and I did a live reaction to the Braylon Mullins commitment. I know it went the wrong way, but there's a video of us breaking it down, what it means for Indiana, where we go from here. So in case you missed that, you can find that on the Locked On Hoosiers YouTube channel. And be sure you're on the lookout this afternoon on Thursday for the Big Ten squad episode that's going to drop on audio and on video. I'm just telling you, maybe our best one yet. We're getting fired up, man. Everybody's in on this thing, and we go at each other, especially me and Roman Tomashaw from Locked On Huskies. And speaking of him, keep an eye out for that tomorrow. We'll have a crossover episode with Indiana and Washington as we talk about the football game coming up on Saturday. So be sure that you are taking in all the wonderful content on the YouTube side and on the audio side. Well, speaking of football, great games this weekend in the Big Ten. And I want to look around at these because multiple of them have Indiana impacts, teams that we have already played or teams, more importantly, that we have coming up on the schedule. And Friday night, Rutgers, USC, snore. I mean, I'll take Rutgers. I don't know. USC is favored by 13.5, which seems like a lot. I'll take USC to win, Rutgers to cover, I guess. I don't know. We don't play those two teams, so I probably won't watch it. Nebraska and Ohio State. I am really curious on this game, all right? It's the big new kickoff game on Saturday. And I'm curious with this game because obviously we just saw what we did to Nebraska. We took out their souls. I mean, we just demolished them all day long. But we have Ohio State coming up on this schedule, right? We play at Ohio State coming up in just a few weeks. And it may not be fair to do a direct comparison on our result versus anybody else's result, but I think we gotta have to. And this will at least give us an idea of where Ohio State stands after their loss to Oregon. They'll have a few games before they get to us, right? So I really do want to see, can Ohio State do what we did? Can they move the football? Can they hang 50 on them? Can the defense shut them down? I think that Ohio State defense, talking with Jay Stevens of Locked On Buckeyes, I think that's something that is just very underrated. And Oregon was able to score, yes, but Ohio State's defense is legit, which is what made that game so much fun because I think Oregon's defense is pretty solid too, and Ohio State was able to score. So I say all that to say this. I'll be watching this game on Saturday because I want to see what Ohio State looks like in comparison to Indiana when they play Nebraska because, again, we've got the Buckeyes coming up in just a couple of weeks. And that game is at the same time as the Indiana-Washington game, so, dual TVs. Pretty simple. Illinois and Oregon, not worried about this game. I mean, I'm going to keep an eye on it just to see if Oregon can keep pace, right? If Oregon can keep doing what they're supposed to do, but we don't play either one of those teams. I don't think Illinois is a top 25 team. I'm sorry. I just don't think they're that good. Their record is good, but the team is not. I think Oregon rolls in this game. Northwestern and Iowa, not concerned. We already beat Northwestern. We don't have Iowa. This will be one of the most boring games you will ever watch in college football. The total from our fans at FanDuel, 37.5 in college football. Yikes. Maryland and Minnesota. We already beat Maryland. We don't play Minnesota. So again, not overly concerned with this game because it's two teams that are not relevant in terms of a Big Ten championship. They're not on our remaining schedule. I'm not worried about it. Penn State and Wisconsin. Now, this game I am interested in, not because we play them, but because I think Penn State's a fraud. I do. I think Penn State is a full, total fraud. I think they're a top 15 team, maybe top 10. They are not top 5. They are not number 3 in the country. I'm sorry, they're not. And they play at Wisconsin this weekend. Night game in Madison. Penn State favored by almost a touchdown. I don't know. Seems like Vegas is begging you to take Wisconsin here, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to take Wisconsin because I just don't think Penn State's that good. And I think Wisconsin started to figure it out a little bit on the offensive side. I know they've dealt with a ton of injuries there, but until Penn State goes in and wins a game legitimately, I'm not impressed. I mean, what's their best performance? West Virginia week 1, and even that was a struggle bus. I'm just not sold on Penn State. So I will have my eyes on that one because I just don't think Penn State's that good. And Indiana's battling with them right now for a spot in the Big Ten championship game. So keep your eye on that one. But the one that I think every Indiana fan should be watching, you should have this game on Saturday night on the Big Ten Network, which is crazy that that's where this is. Michigan State at Michigan at night in the Big House. Yes, the Spartans and the Wolverines do battle on Saturday night, and you should be watching this game. Why, you may ask? Because Indiana still has to play Michigan State and Michigan. Yes, Indiana plays them, and not just plays them back to back. After Washington, we go to Michigan State and come back home for Michigan. So you need to be keeping an eye on this game because if you hadn't noticed, both teams are 4-3 this season. 4 wins, 3 losses. Like, Michigan State has kind of turned it around a little bit somehow, and I still think Michigan is not a very good football team. I told you that in the very beginning of the season. But they're still dangerous. Both of these teams are playing decent football. So we're going to learn a lot this weekend about both offenses and defenses, what Indiana can expect next weekend when Michigan State hosts Indiana. We'll talk with Matt Sheehan of Locked On Spartans next week about that. But keep your eye out on this game, man. Take notes. I will for sure, because Indiana's got to find a way to beat both of those teams. You're better than them. There's no doubt about that. And the big question is Curtis Rourke going to be back? We'll find out next week. But I'm telling you, you need to watch that game. Michigan State and Michigan, both teams 4-3, which again is just so wild to me. And Michigan's gone through, 17 quarterbacks this year, and Michigan State was written off after week 2. But all of a sudden, they've kind of figured it out a little bit. So good for them. Keep your eye out on that game. Indiana plays Washington this weekend. Whole episode coming up for you tomorrow. Locked On with a crossover edition with Locked On Huskies with Roman Tomashoff. Him and I sit down and talk about the entire game. We talk about Indiana. We talk about Washington. We talk about what each team has to do to win this football game and what the rest of the season looks like. So that's coming up on tomorrow's show, okay? And that does it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Again, all of my audio listeners, be sure that you are following us on your platform and subscribe to us if possible and have those notifications turned on. I don't want you missing any new episodes, okay? So be sure that you have all of that done for me. And then those of you on YouTube, like the video, comment your thoughts down below. Are you watching any other Big Ten games this weekend? Which team on the schedule scares you still? And then be sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are back tomorrow, Hoosier fans. So until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.